Today we light the candle for the third Sunday of Advent. You can see it over my shoulder. And we've been through hope in Advent 1, and we've been through peace in Advent 2. And today we're focusing on joy. Now, joy is surprisingly a tough one for a lot of people. They were like, joy right now? A lot of people right now are, based on many conversations with our members, with just friends, people are carrying a lot of the anxiety that's just the opposite of joy. Just today, as we come into church, we're witnessing another attack on Jewish worshipers, this time in Australia, a shooting at Brown University. People are coming in with health concerns. There's divides that we're trying to bridge in our families. And worst of all, there's so much going on in our lives that we can often feel numb to these events. And so in a world that feels so chaotic, hearing the command to rejoice by the pastor, it can feel a little bit like a polite religious suggestion, or worse. It can feel like a form of spiritual bypass. Just ignore everything, put on a happy face. We want to see you smile, ignore the pain. But the deeper meaning of this third Sunday of Advent is this: joy comes to us in all situations. Joy arrives when we move through tough times, and we're not alone. The challenges that we face are natural and they're expected in life. But we need to hear this message of joy and be reminded about it. As you could see from the photographs of the front of the house, when I was thinking of what decoration I wanted for the front yard, I picked the letters joy in big 3-foot level size in red so that anybody can see it. And I figured if there's one word that the people of Washington need to hear right now, that was it, joy. And so that's what I want to pursue today, is this topic of joy, to understand it through the whole Christmas story. If you look at the manger scene that we have where Christ is born, you just think about all the tension and anxiety that everybody in the story is going through, right? Mary is told that she's pregnant, but she's not clear on who the father is. Joseph is told about his new wife is a virgin, despite what he experienced. At the moment when she needs to give birth, they can't find a proper space on the road, so they use a barn. And shortly after the birth, Mary and Joseph are told to save the baby's life, they're going to have to escape to Egypt. That's a lot going on in a story, and it's not an accident that we're told that God comes into the world in the midst of chaos. In today's reading from Luke, Mary goes to visit her cousin Elizabeth. Both women are carrying impossible pregnancies. Mary's an unwed teenager. Elizabeth is a woman past menopause, and they're both facing the potential social scandal, and they're both uncertain of what's going to happen next. But when they meet in that beautiful story, we're told that Elizabeth's baby leaps in the womb for joy. And then Mary breaks into a beautiful song. They recognize God's presence in each other, and they recognize that there's joy in the midst of all that. And that's the beginning of the story with Jesus. But this joy theme is a lesson through his entire life. If you look at Jesus' last night on earth, he's faced betrayal, he's about to be arrested, he's about to be tortured and executed. What does Jesus talk about with his disciples? He talks about joy. He said, I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. You will have sorrow, but I will see you again, and your joy no one will take from you. So if we're worried about the world, we're worried about the people we love, we're worried about what's going to happen next, then we're at the right place at the right time, because this has always been the nature of life. And the nature of life is that joy is God's clear presence in the midst of the mess. Jesus is teaching us that joy lives alongside suffering. Joy is the presence of God in the midst of it. So this brings us to a crucial distinction between joy and happiness. We often use the words interchangeably, though they describe different experiences. Happiness is external. It's a reaction to happenings. You get a raise, it's a sunny day, someone gives you a compliment, and like that sunny day, it comes and goes with the weather. You could be happy one day and not so much the next. But joy is internal. It's spiritual resilience that lives within us. It's deeper, regardless of the weather of our lives. The great spiritual writers that I've been led by have always insisted on understanding joy at this level. My old professor, Father Henry Nouwen, he spent his whole life working with children and adults with profound disabilities. And he wrote this: joy is not the same as happiness. We can be unhappy about many things, but joy can still be there because it comes from the knowledge of God's love for us. Joy does not simply happen to us. We have to choose joy and keep choosing it every day. C.S. Lewis, in his autobiography, Surprised by Joy, described joy as a stab or a pang. He noted that while we can sometimes manufacture happiness with a good meal or a distraction, joy is never in our power. It's a gift that breaks through from the outside. And perhaps maybe the most powerful witness comes from Reverend Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Writing from a Nazi prison cell where there was no happiness, he wrote that joy is invincible because it does not ignore the darkness. He said, "The joy of God goes through the poverty of the manger and the agony of the cross. It does not deny the anguish when it is there, but it finds God in the midst of it." So when the scripture says, rejoice, it's inviting you to anchor yourself in something deeper than your current mood. And as we read from our Swedenborg Insight today, angels don't find joy by pursuing it. They find it by being useful to others. The more love they share, the more joy they feel. Joy multiplies when we give it away in service. So, have any of us ever seen any of this in practice in our own life? As I reflected on that, I thought, where have I really seen this in my life? And it was a very surprising place where I saw joy. I think the most profound experience I had was around 2003. I was visiting rural Uganda with Senate staff to see if we could convince our Congress to support sending AIDS drugs to Africa. And we were in a very small, remote village. And I sat under a large tree visiting a woman who had been given AIDS medications for just a very short time. And in that short time, she was brought back to life through access to these drugs. And her husband's gravestone stood outside in front of the modest house. She wore an impeccably clean dress. Her gaunt frame bowed gracefully when we met. And her children gathered around us, and the girls bowing respectfully. And she showed us her simple home. Grabbing my hand, she said, "This is my house." Inside, there were plastic chairs covered with sheets, a photo of her daughter on the wall, a 1999 Christian calendar with the image of Jesus. And the scene was overwhelming. In fact, it hits me right now as I remember it, and tears welled up to my eyes. The joy of this woman And this community was unlike any joy I'd experienced. Here is a woman who had just buried her husband, who was dying herself weeks before, whose children faced orphanhood. She had no running water, no electricity, and barely any possessions. And yet joy radiated from her at a very spiritual level. She knew God's presence was real in that small town, in that small home with the gravestone outside. That woman would become one of the first in Africa to receive those life-saving drugs. And what was she doing in the midst of that? She explained she was adopting the orphans from her sisters. Her joy came from giving life to others, even as she rebuilt her own. This is what Jesus meant. This is what Mary and Elizabeth discovered. Joy is the recognition that God is present while everything can still be broken. So how do we practice joy in a world that feels so challenging? Well, here's something I'd love for you to try. And I give these practical things because people do try them. I know people tried not say anything negative, and they emailed me and said it was transformative in a relationship. So I know you're paying attention, and the people who watch the video. So let me give you something practical. The next time you get really frustrated and worried about politics or your family or the future, I want you to just pause. Stop what you're doing and thank God that you've been given this life at this time for a very short period in the history of the world. Now, even if you don't fully believe it, just try it. Because think about it. Of all the billions of years this universe has existed, and of all the countless generations that have come and gone, you are alive right now. You get to be here. You get to love the people in front of you. You get to wrestle with these challenges. You get to participate in what God's doing in the world right now. What a gift. What a joy. When you shift from, why is everything so hard, to what an incredible privilege to be alive right now, something changes. Your problems might remain the same, and yet you recognize the sacred gift of your existence in this exact moment. Swedenborg teaches that our trials that we experience, they're soul building. Every challenge that you face, it's an opportunity for you to develop some spiritual muscle. The woman in Uganda was joyful because her suffering had deepened her capacity to receive God's love and give it away. So this week, when you feel the weight on you and you say to yourself, this is a real challenge, you can also just say to yourself, I'm being built. I'm alive. I'm growing spiritually in this moment. For the short time that I'm on this earth, what a gift. It's a joy. So today, we've lit this candle of joy that comes from knowing that God is near. Mary sang in the midst of a scandal. Elizabeth rejoiced in the midst of impossibility. Jesus promised us joy on the night before he'd be on the cross. A Ugandan widow radiated joy with her husband's grave right there in the front yard. Joy is the strength we receive when we recognize that God is present while the world is still broken. Amen. At this time, we will open it up to any questions, comments, thoughts about joy, sermon, whether pets get into heaven, anything that's on your mind.
Rich, could you just repeat maybe the last sentence or so that you said in your talk?
Yes, let me pull it back up. Was there anything in particular?
I think it was just the last sentence, and I was moving my chair, and it's got a
Okay, I'll
grumble.
just. So it just said, today as we light this candle, remember joy is the courage that comes from knowing that God is near.
Okay.
Mary sang in the midst of a scandal. Elizabeth rejoiced in the midst of impossibility. Jesus promised joy on the night before the cross. A Ugandan widow radiated joy with her husband's grave in the front yard. Joy is the strength we receive when we recognize that God is present while the world is still broken.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on the fact that on September 11th, 2001, I was in a hospital in Kitchener, Ontario, having a severely broken leg and ankle uh, taken care of. And so in the next 2 years, I found myself becoming the president-elect of the church. And in 2004, I went to New York to install Ron Brugler officially as the pastor of the New York New Church. And my sister, my brother-in-law, and I went to a little church called St. Paul's Chapel, which is on the corner of Broadway and something, but it's not very far. It was not harmed at all by all of the devastation and destruction that went on, and became a gathering place for all first responders and neighborhood people.
Mm-hmm.
And they did the coolest thing. They asked people to write their thoughts down, and ultimately they compiled them into a book that you can actually, I think, get. I'm not sure, but they were like printed pages on the walls.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? That probably had to be one of the bleakest days in our existence, and yet, or that time period.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm remembering as you are speaking is that the things that were on the wall, while they weren't platitudes or, learned phrases or anything, they were just people saying basically, uh, I'm so glad that my brother got home from school. Stuff like that. I mean, it was actually a very joy filled space with all of the loss and everything that went on. And I just wanted to share that.
Well,
It's
thank you.
quite
Yeah,
amazing.
it is amazing, Chris, and thank you for sharing that experience of joy. And it is really a paradox. You know, your story, my story, these are like sort of the worst possible times. And I think that's just such an important thing for us to keep in mind when we feel like, oh, these times are tougher. This situation is the worst, or this is we're not going to get through this, whatever it is. I think we can tap into that
Right.
memory too
Yeah.
of joy. So thank you for sharing that. That's
Thank
beautiful.
you. Mhm.
Anyone else?
So I'm an elementary school teacher. At least I started out as elementary music. Uh, a woman in the New York New Church congregation was a second grade teacher, and she taught in a school where on that day she led her students home, and she talked about the fact. She said, "I walked 14 miles that day." She said, "If you
Mm,
told me I'd ever be able to walk 14 miles, I would have said, of course not." Good Lord, no. I live in an apartment here in Manhattan.
yeah,
But
beautiful.
but the reality was she walked. She figured it out afterwards. A total of about 14 miles to make sure that all
Beautiful.
of the students in her classroom got to either a pickup point or a home place. And but she was happy about that. And I'm thinking, here we are walking through the worst destruction that's going on, and buildings are still coming down and so on. And yet she is her task was such a happy one to get the kids home.
Yeah, and with that, with that story also reflects is the getting outside of yourself and doing something for
Yeah.
others, and the fact that the angels can do that. Great. Anybody else with a question or comment or thought about joy? Or
Yes. Can you hear me?
yes, go ahead. Yes, Betty, go ahead.
I feel like this year, different from almost any other year, because of all the things that I've been going through. And yet, I find myself choosing joy and choosing happiness as well, and gratefulness, because I'm finding through all of this that there is a place within us, and it may be the soul or it may be the spirit, I'm not sure, that reaches for the highest place it can go. And the highest place it can go might surprise you. And so it's, and things are coming up. It's like there are things that I've been ignoring in my life and things that I don't want to ignore anymore. And how I can be a part of that feeling and doing is more prominent in my mind right now. And I'm so very grateful for that. And I find myself laughing a lot and and reaching out. I'm reaching out, I'm extending myself, I'm asking questions, I'm saying, how can I help? What can I do? What is it? What is it I can do that will bring that gift of joy, not just to me, but to others? And so it's been a wonderful experience, in spite
I
of the
love that.
fact it's
Yeah.
an extremely fearful experience.
Yeah.
But
I love the fact that you noted that it combines both fear, right? There's anxiety and stress in all these stories, and that the joy travels through it. I also, we're all here for a specific period of time on this sphere, and the lessons never stop coming as long as we are still, open to it. And yeah, so I love that you're, paying attention to all these lessons and listening to them, and I think the more we can tap into those, the better. So thank you for sharing that.
they're loosening my heart. I don't know any other way to
Beautiful.
explain it,
It's a
because
great way to explain it.
I know no one would believe this, but I'm a very stubborn woman. But nobody believed that. But I am very stubborn, but it's loosened my heart. And that's a
It's
unique
beautiful.
feeling.
That
And
is a unique
it's
feeling.
unique,
Yeah. When your heart
so
is
I'm
loosened.
thankful to God. I really am thankful to God. I mean, He saved my life. And I'm feeling good about that. And I want others
Beautiful.
to feel good about all the things that happen to them. And I can be a part of that. We all can be a part of that. And I think that's what Jesus' commandments are all about. He wants us to be a part of it. And I intend to
And I
be.
think just by being here with each other, we can, as a community, when we show up for worship, and pray for each other and pray with each other, we're doing that too
Yes,
in ways
yes.
we
I think
never,
maybe that's why
ways
I
we
like
really
it so
never
much.
knew.
Yeah,
Thank you for that,
that's true.
Betty.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Well, I had a real nice experience of some joy today here in Akron. How we're under a severe winter storm. You're not to leave your place, so everyone is like, "Oh, rats!" But it turned out to be a day where everyone was going around the building, putting our cards on everybody's door, and cookies and all types of stuff. We're walking the halls, and it's like, oh my gosh, there's like 40 people out walking the halls the same. So we're all laughing. So what turned out to be waking up, you can't leave your place, turned out to be a very nice day. And then we gathered down in the lobby and just laughing and joking. So out of something that generally is, not too much fun, being hunkered down, turned out to be a very joyful day.
That's beautiful. Well, David, I think you're a very joyful person, so I'm sure you bring a lot of joy to people in that building on a pretty regular basis because I know you bring it here. So, yeah, I think that they're blessed to have you as a neighbor. Anybody else?
I just wanted to add, I really loved your sermon, and I will try to apply that very practical lesson. And it struck me in reading Luke's passages that joy seems to be a primordial emotion, that even fetus was able to feel God's joy. And yet, as adults, we kind of need to lean into that feeling and almost refocus ourselves and remind, oh my God, we are alive. Thank you so much for being here. So it takes more intention and action as adults to get back to that feeling.
That's a really good point. If you think about it, children who grow up in tough circumstances are often extremely joyful. And how many people have said, I didn't know that we were poor, or I didn't know this, or I didn't know that. And children are fairly resilient and joyful. It does seem like it does get knocked out of us. I'm not sure exactly why, but it does seem as we get into adults, maybe it's not sophisticated, or maybe we have so many expectations that aren't being met that we want these things. I don't know what it is. But yeah, it is interesting that it's in the womb, and then you see it with kids who are so joyful. One reason I love when we have children singing choirs on Sunday is just there's something joyful about children, and I think we've got to. I guess when Jesus said you've got to be like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven, I think maybe that was one of the things he's talking about is get back to that just joy, that just trust in that things will be okay, and I'll do my best. And so yeah, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for the feedback on the sermon.
Hi, Rich. This is Steve.
Hey, Steve.
Your comment about your recent comment about children growing up and not having very much money, but not recognizing that they were poor, reminds me of a story that Peter Gomes told. He once said to his mother something about, well, when I was growing up, we were poor. And his mother responded, we weren't poor, we just didn't have very much money.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add that.
Thank you,
And
Steve. Yeah.
also, I did enjoy your sermon. Thank you for that too.
Oh, thank you. It's good to hear from you. Okay. Any final questions or comments or thoughts? All right.